The story begins on a night in the 70s, when the teenage Lorelei Randell takes advantage of her parents' absence to host guests. The invitation was only for her crush, a boy named Carter, but he decided to bring several friends without warning. The girls are mean and disrespect the hostess the whole time, until one of them suggests the game of spin the bottle. Lorelei is very shy and insecure, so she accepts the ideas of the more popular peers. However, they want to play the game in the house's basement, and that she cannot allow. Running to block passage, she says that it is her father's chapel and no one may enter. Carter uses his charm to convince her to make an exception, and she ends up giving in. The youths go down to the chapel, trading insensitive comments about the oddness of the room, where they even find a live snake. Noticing Lorelei's nervousness when the pantry door begins to creak, one of the girls insists on going in there precisely. Meanwhile, a priest is parking in front of the house, looking anxious at the other two cars already there. The girl comes out of the pantry with a dark bottle, and Lorelei panics upon seeing the object, begging them not to touch her father's things. Taking her hand, Carter asks her to trust him, and, once again, she agrees. The youths sit around the pentagram conveniently drawn on the floor and begin the game, while the priest knocks on the door and calls Lorelei by name. When Carter kisses one of the girls with too much enthusiasm, Lorelei is hurt, and the bottle begins to vibrate until it ejects the cap, releasing a strange-looking smoke. The priest is almost about to give up when the house begins to shake. Fearing the worst, he goes around and peers through the basement window. Everyone is already standing and seems terrified by the phenomenon, except Lorelei. She has a vindictive expression, extending her arms toward her rival. The priest shouts her name from the window, asking her to stop what she is doing, but she pays no heed. Several decades later, a woman named Maura Nichols is hospitalized in a psychiatric clinic in Houston, Texas. She has just tragically lost her husband and laments the abrupt change in her son Cole's life. The young man does not mind helping his mother get back on her feet and warns that he has already changed schools to be closer to her. Their financial situation has changed too, and the only property they have is the house where Maura grew up. Cole plans to renovate it before selling, but his mother does not want him to stay there long. Still refusing to talk about her childhood, she asks the boy not to go into the basement under any circumstances and to deny his kinship with the Randalls to any curious person who asks. Leaving, Cole hits the road and follows his mother's instructions until he reaches a gate full of signs, a not very welcoming sight. After that, there is still a long stretch to the solitary two-story house atop the hill. The windows are boarded up, and the overall aspect is one of abandonment. The interior of the house is equally gloomy, and nothing happens when the light switch is flicked. The lamp lights up moments later, just as Cole is looking at Lorelei's portrait. There are several other photos throughout the house, showing relatives Cole never knew. In one, we see Lorelei with her parents and a baby. Sinister dolls and other strange objects are abundant, which intrigues Cole so much that he delays telling his mother he has arrived. She calls quickly, very anxious and worried, but he reassures her that everything is fine. On Friday, Cole participates in tryouts for the school team and meets a girl named Casey. The coach welcomes him with satisfaction, impressed with his athletic background. The boys, Travis and Weston, act defensively for the same reason. They try everything to disrupt Cole's performance, but that only makes him shine more, drawing sighs from his new admirers, Mila and Sophie. The two wait for him in the parking lot after practice, eager to socialize. The other boys soon realize they will have to tolerate Cole if they want to keep dating the girls. Without much ceremony, the two get into his car and even invite Casey to come along. While Cole drives, they explain a little about the group's dynamics. Mila and Travis are always breaking up and getting back together, while Sophie's relationship with Weston is even more casual. When Sophie says she is saving herself for the perfect man, her friends burst into laughter. From the car behind, Travis calls the girls to suggest the night's location, but Sophie complains about all his ideas. Thinking quickly, Mila invents a fake tradition about freshman students and says Cole must invite them to his own house. Casey is the only one concerned about the boy's situation and asks if his parents are home. Ashamed to reveal the truth, he says his mother is on a business trip. Excited by the prospect of a spontaneous party, Sophie sends the boys to follow Cole's car. The route is much longer than everyone expected, and when they arrive at the destination, the girls immediately recognize the house where something horrific happened to a group of teenagers. Casual, Cole says he hasn't seen any ghosts so far, but when Travis asks if he is related to the Randalls, he obeys his mother and says she recently bought the property. Entering the house, Mila recognizes Lorelai as the perpetrator of the crimes on that terrible night. Once again, the lights seem to manifest as people approach the portrait. Remembering more details about the case, Mila goes to the basement door, saying it must be even more interesting down there. Cole begins to say that his mother won't allow it, but is ashamed to continue the sentence with Travis and Weston ready to mock him. His last hope is the padlock, since he truly does not have the key. Unfortunately, that is not enough to deter Mila. So the story takes a turn to repeat itself, and another group of foolish youths forces its way to visit the cursed basement. The various signs of Satanism shock everyone, especially Cole, who did not know that side of the family. Travis and Casey are the most averse to the idea of staying there, while Mila wants to explore everything, including the pantry. Sophie goes in with her, and the two find a shelf full of bizarre jars. Summarizing the tragedy for her friend, Mila says Lorelai was tormented by her father all her life until she snapped with her friends during Spin the Bottle. After exterminating them, she saved the last bullet for herself. Of all the junk on that shelf, Mila chooses exactly the same dark bottle and has the brilliant idea to repeat the game. She doesn't even wait for the bottle to open magically and promptly removes the cap. Besides herself, no one else seems very keen on playing with these things, but no one wants to appear cowardly either. Since they are no longer in the 70s, the game has new rules to ensure mutual consent. Whoever does not want to kiss the person in question will have to take a gulp of drink. The first mock round is between Weston and Cole, who prefer to pay the toll, while Mila and Sophie are unashamed when their turn comes. Although enjoying the game, Casey is still afraid of the basement and only relaxes a little when it is her turn to kiss the host. Mila begins to hear muffled voices and screams of undefined origin, and soon after, the floor starts to tremble. The phenomenon passes quickly, and no one seems too concerned. When the bottle points to Travis, she decides to start level 2 and takes the boy to the pantry. He follows willingly, despite the horrific setting. Then we see an eye spying on the couple, and Mila clearly hears a voice saying, "You don't love him." Very haunted, she leaves the pantry screaming and reports that she just interacted with Lorelai's spirit. She says it must be her imagination, but still prefers to get out of there as soon as possible. Her terror is so evident that it spreads to the others, but it does not stop Sophie from taking a souvenir. While she puts the bottle in her bag, Mila is getting into the Uber. Travis is a little worried about her, since he himself did not hear or see anything. Mila asks the driver to hurry, because she is still hearing furtive whispers and has not yet realized they are coming from inside the car. When Lorelai's face reveals itself right next to her, she begins to scream at the top of her lungs, and the driver abandons the ride, leaving the girl alone in the middle of nowhere. The other guests are also leaving, and Cole apologizes for the strange night. Casey says Mila is known for having meltdowns like that, and nothing serious must have happened. Still on the road, Mila begins to hear Lorelai's voice making threats and accusations. She runs to the only lit spot, but the ghost emerges from the darkness, walking toward her very slowly and cracking its neck in a monstrous way. The street lamp begins to emit sparks when it attacks its victim. Not very keen to sleep with the macabre dolls up there, Cole makes his bed on the couch instead. He falls asleep before noticing that the lights have started to flicker frantically. In the dream, he sees his father asking for forgiveness just before pulling the trigger. In the morning, Cole wakes with Sheriff Stanton knocking on his door. He says Mila is missing and makes a brief interrogation about the previous night. Besides revealing that Fred Randall was his grandfather, Cole also recounts everything that happened in the basement, unaware that he is speaking with Casey's father. The officer leaves visibly annoyed with the young man and says he needs to include Cole's kinship with the Randalls in the official report. Alone again, the young man begins to explore the house's oddities and finds a closed room. Trying to peek under the door, he has the impression of hearing a male voice and is startled. His cell phone rings at that very moment, and he talks to Casey, who called to say the rumor has spread. The whole town is hearing that Mila disappeared after a party at the haunted house, and it is only a matter of time before they come to bother him. She explains how to get to Weston's chalet and recommends that he stay there for a few days. Regretting having doubted Mila, she says she will help in the search. Weston and Travis are practicing shooting when Cole arrives at the refuge. When Weston starts aiming at him, asking about his lineage and Mila's whereabouts, the boy thinks he has fallen into a trap. But then Weston begins to laugh, and it is Cole who loses patience with such tasteless jokes. Sophie appears with drinks, and Cole says they should be with Casey, helping to look for their missing friend. Travis says Mila has done this before and is sure she is fine. Outraged by their insensitivity, Cole decides to return to the house and read about the 70s incident. He discovers that 6 teenagers lost their lives that night and were found by a priest. Casey comes to talk to him, and Cole confesses his kinship to her. He also admits that he feels strange in his grandfather's house, as if he had never really been alone there. Trying to find clues, Casey asks to take a look at that strange bottle, which means going down to the basement again. While the two search, a female apparition behind Cole frightens Casey, but it is all too quick and she cannot show him. Feeling the boy is open to less conventional theories, she asks if it would be possible that Mila really experienced something supernatural. After all, a group of troublemakers playing spin the bottle right there could have angered Lorelei's soul. The ghost is already forming among the shadows on the wall as she explains the theory. But before the two can check whether it is just an illusion, Sophie starts pounding on the front door, desperate to get in. They rush up and find their friend fallen on the floor, apparently unconscious. But when she opens her eyes, we see it was all just a prank. Weston and Travis also arrive, saying they filmed everything, and this time, Cole cannot hold himself back. He starts punching Weston until Travis pulls them apart. Sophie says many people have already seen the video, and soon Casey's phone begins to ring. Her friends think it must be another reprimand from the sheriff, but Stanton asks his daughter to sit down before telling her that Mila has been found. On Monday, there is a memorial wall for her in the schoolyard. Cole, thinking it would be worse to stay hidden at a time like this, decides to go to the wake, but his presence draws many disapproving looks. While Casey talks about her friendship with the deceased, Sheriff Stanton speaks with an elderly priest named Harris. He also heard the rumors and confirms with Stanton that the youths really were in that basement. At the pulpit, Casey speaks of Mila's love of life. Unintentionally, she ignites people against Cole, and his father has to take him away before another disaster occurs. That night, Weston organizes a post-funeral party at the chalet. Sophie suggests they play Spin the Bottle to honor Mila, and Travis agrees she would have liked the gesture. It is only then that Casey and Cole discover she stole the bottle. A girl named Jane butts into the group and invites Weston to join the game as well. He accepts immediately, and the game begins again. After a few rounds, a sudden wind knocks over all the cups, and Lorelei's sobs begin to be heard through the chalet. Sophie is startled when the bottle starts to move on its own, choosing Casey and Cole. She is a little hurt to see how the pair fumble together every time they are chosen. Focused on jealousy, she barely notices ghostly hands on her neck until she shivers, and then decides to leave the circle. Guests begin to leave while Sophie looks for Travis outside. The wind begins to blow harder, and she realizes she is being followed by Lorelei. Luckily, she ends up finding Travis shortly after and tells him she also saw the ghost. Mourning the loss of Mila, the two end up kissing, and Lorelei doesn't seem to like that very much. Talking about what they just witnessed, Casey and Cole conclude that Lorelei's spirit is connected to the bottle and not to the basement. Cole says he will bury it the next day. At the chalet, Jane is the only guest who did not go home, and her romantic moment with Weston is interrupted by the car alarm. He goes to turn it off and begins to hear whispers too, so he grabs the shotgun and tells his friends to stop the game. When he leans against the car, a pair of arms breaks the window from the inside and pulls his head back. Worried about the delay, Jane goes looking for him and is confronted with the horrendous scene. Entering the chalet again, she encounters Lorelei ready to attack another victim. The next day, Stanton nearly breaks down Cole's door to interrogate him. He talks about the couple found at the chalet and mentions the video of the fight between Cole and Weston. Cole swears he spent the night at home, and when the sheriff is about to rebut that no one can corroborate this alibi, his own daughter appears and says she was with him all night. Furious, Stanton tells Casey to wait in the car while he talks to Cole. He says the boy should stay away from her because of his family history. His grandfather was a terrible man, and everyone who spent a long time in that house disappeared without explanation. After that unpleasant conversation, Cole finds a note on his car's rearview mirror. Father Harris wants to speak with him at night at the First Pentecostal Church. Before visiting the priest, the young man drives to Houston to see his mother. As soon as she hugs him, Maura says something is wrong. He tells her that terrible things are happening and begs her to reveal everything she knows. Very distressed, she begins to tell the family's story and says her great-grandfather founded the first Pentecostal church in town. All her relatives were very religious, except her father, Fred. Convinced his destiny was to dominate a demon called Ahriman, he built the chapel in the basement to gather members of the sect. Maura says there was a sacred bottle whose spiritual powers were tied to the Randell lineage. Fred used his own daughter, Lorelei, to attract very powerful evil entities and trap them in the bottle. Maura is distraught when Cole says the evil object is with him and begs her son to get rid of it. Finally, she also implies that she is Lorelei's daughter, not her sister. Stunned by all this, Cole calls Casey and says the sheriff is right. She needs to stay away from him if she wants to remain safe. Hearing his daughter on the phone, Stanton begins a sermon and says she is forbidden from leaving the house. But soon after he goes to work, Travis and Sophie arrive to pick her up. Meanwhile, Cole is at the church talking with Harris. He confirms everything his mother said and recounts that his intention was to save Lorelei. That is why he visited her when Fred was not there, not knowing she was in the basement with a group of youths. During the game, Lorelei begins to lose control when she sees everyone belittling her and demands that it be her turn. The bottle changes direction as if an invisible hand had pointed its neck directly at Carter, but the boy prefers to skip his turn. Phyllis is getting scared and asks him to kiss Lorelei quickly so everyone can go home. Then he snaps under the pressure and takes it out on his admirer, calling Lorelei crazy and saying he only accepted the invitation for the chance to see up close the horror show her life is. Carter even says it's not her fault she was so irreversibly ruined by her father. Devastated by the humiliation, Lorelei leaves herself open for Ahriman to take over. At this point in the story, Casey arrives at the church with Travis and Sophie. Cole explains that they were also with him in the basement, and Harris continues the narrative. Possessed by Ahriman, Lorelei quickly eliminates all unwanted guests until only Carter remains. When Father Harris manages to enter the basement, she is sucking the life out of the boy. Harris begins the exorcism process and brings Lorelei back to normal. But she is too shaken by what she has done and refuses to live with the guilt. Back in the present, Harris explains that he could not separate Ahriman from his host before she left, which ended up creating the aberration they are now dealing with. A thing that is part ghost and part demon. Shortly after the infamous tragedy, her spirit began to haunt her own family seeking vengeance, but Fred managed to capture it in the bottle, where it remained trapped until the moment Mila removed the cap. The only way to put an end to all this is to lure Lorelei with what she loves most, separate her from the demon, and then imprison it back in the bottle. Harris states that only a Randell can do this, and says fire can help control Ahriman. Leaving the church, Cole tries to spare his friends from the risky undertaking, but they refuse to abandon him. Also, what Lorelei loves most is romance, and he cannot produce that on his own. So they return to the house where it all began. Cole tells Travis the shotgun is unnecessary, but the boy refuses to face a demon empty-handed. In the basement, the four sit again around the pentagram and begin to spin the bottle. The game is very different from the previous ones, for everyone behaves with solemn respect. When it is Casey's turn, the lights begin to flicker and the bottle comes to life, deliberately choosing Cole. The fire in the incinerator diminishes as they begin to kiss, and Lorelei's cadaverous figure appears in a corner. Sophie is next, but the bottle chooses Travis and she hesitates. Afraid of the evil heading her way, she runs terrified to the pantry and closes the door. Obviously, this only prevents her friends from helping, as the apparition is already there with her. It doesn't take long for such a shadowy being to begin sucking the young woman's soul. When the others manage to open the door, it is already too late for Sophie. Outraged by yet another loss, Travis starts shooting everywhere, following the apparition upstairs. The demon begins to confuse him with Sophie's voice and Mila's appearance, however it soon reveals its dreadful form. Cole and Casey pursue him and arrive in time to see their friend dragged away by an invisible force, before also being consumed by the demonic light. Remembering Father Harris's tip, Cole threatens to throw the bottle into the fire, and Lorelai immediately appears. Then he exchanges vows of love with Casey, and the couple kisses long and deeply. When Lorelai is sufficiently distracted, Cole takes the chance to introduce himself as her grandson and tries to remind her of her beloved daughter, Maura. The plan works, and the ghost separates from the demon, disappearing afterwards. Homeless, Ahriman is forced back into the bottle. Sheriff Stanton arrives at the haunted house searching for his daughter and soon enters the place calling for her. Casey goes upstairs to meet him while Cole throws the bottle into the fire, but the demon will not succumb without a fight. The flames project outward, engulfing the entire basement and exploding. Cole needs to be hospitalized after the incident, but soon recovers and the house undergoes major renovations. We see men cleaning the basement, and one of them ends up finding the bottle intact at the bottom of the incinerator, hardly knowing that there dwells a powerful and soul-destroying evil.